Welcome into the penultimate pre-playoff edition of Total Hockey Now here on the Total Hockey Now Twitter, YouTube, X/Facebook, whatever you want to call them, network here. We're on all three platforms. I am at Pucking Thoughts at Adam Bernard. Adam Bernard at Pucking Thoughts. Let's get that right. On the to my left, but your right is at Ant Rivera 86. Anthony Rivera sporting the Sharp Devils shirt there with the old 80s color scheme. And then at Fuzzy Chris 91 down there, at Christopher Morais. My line mates, as always, fellas, we're getting close. 9 days. Regular season ends, 11 days to the playoffs. How do we feel?
Well, for me, less pain is going to be happening because I think tonight is the night where the clock strikes 0 for the Devils. So their elimination number is very close at hand. So once they're out, I can sit back, get a little popcorn, order those boneless wings as my fellow friend Chris Morais orders, and some beer, and enjoy the playoffs from the sidelines.
Now, I have to just interject here for a second because you said the disappointment will be over, but I believe you do a Mets podcast, don't you?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's not really a true statement then.
The disappointment of hockey ends, but the disappointment of sports life continues.
That's Subway to Shea, folks. If you want to, deal with the Mets misery, there it is. Chris, how we doing?
I mean, look, the Habs have been eliminated now for a minute, so now we're just coasting out here. We're just letting it ride, just having a good time, keeping an eye on the East, all the chaos and everything that's happening. I get to sit back, grab my popcorn, maybe a nice little seltzer, and just watch the chaos in the East that is the final 2 spots in the Metro try to be claimed by any team that has a pulse. First team to win 2 games in a row, I think, will get it. That's it.
We are going to certainly dive deep into that. We're going to take a look at the potential playoff bracket. We'll take a look at the rest of the regular season. We'll do a deep dive on those Metro teams. We'll also preview as much as we can with you next Tuesday when we're back with you. We'll see what matchups we have, but and also, as you see scrolling on the bottom of the screen there, give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, comment. All that stuff helps. We love doing this every week. We love talking hockey with you. And we're at the best part of the calendar to talk hockey. Last couple of weeks of the regular season and playoffs. This is the time. So we're going to be here with you throughout the playoffs. We'll go back to our weekly mock drafts in the summer once we get past free agency and all that good stuff. So let's not waste any other time. Why don't we just get right to quick hits here? And first things first, we got to talk. First thing is it's tonight's NHL schedule, 13 games. It's a big beefy Tuesday night as it tends to be. We're not going to go through all the matchups here because some of them aren't really worthy, but we'll talk about the playoff matchups here. You got Hurricanes, Bruins, so you got 2 top teams in the East facing off. Capitals, Red Wings, of course, the game of the night there for that wild card 2 spot. And if you're the Capitals, you're still looking at that Metro 3. And then a lot of one-sided matchups. One team has some significance, one doesn't the rest of the way. One thing I'm looking at too, Flyers, Canadians tonight. Philly's got to get back on track. Chris would like to see Montreal get 2 more points based on a preseason bet to hit that over 71.5 points. So go Habs for that. But Caps, Red Wings, that's what it's all about tonight.
Yes, I will be. Even though the Habs are playing and I do need 2 points, I can check in with them. Also, if you're Habs, you could probably skip like the first period, probably at 0-0, low shooting affair. Then you can turn it for the second period where Montreal just forgets how to play hockey. So I want to watch a lot of the Capitals and Red Wings because I feel like that matchup there is there's so much on the line here for both of those teams. I want to watch chaos. First, I was telling you, I want to see this game go to overtime. That's what I wanted. I want to see a 3-point game. And then I want to see both teams try to pull their goalies at different times to make sure that they can get the 2 points. I feel like at this point, getting 1 point is good, but you need that second point. You need it. And I'm sure the analytics will tell them what they need to do, but you cannot afford to not get 2 points if you are those teams. You can't afford it. Also, the Islanders are facing off with the Rangers. The Islanders also need a win. I am very less confident in them doing anything. And then a game I will tune into a little bit here. I want to watch the Avs and the Wild a little bit. The Avalanche have given up 13 goals in their last 2 games. It seems like they've forgotten how to, play defense. No Mikko Rantanen. He is still out. He was wearing a non-contact jersey in practice, so usually that stems from the team's not calling it. He's entered concussion protocol. That's all we know. So I want to see how that works. I mean, Dallas is kind of running away now with that division here. Colorado needs 2 points there to really keep pace, and then everything else is just whatever's on. We'll tune in. I don't care for Columbus and Tampa Bay, and I mean Sabres and Stars. Cool. Jets and Predators, by the way, I'll give them a shout. That could be some fun if you want to watch that in the middle.
That's a good one there too. But yeah, to me, Boston, Carolina, like to me, that's almost going to have like a little bit of a playoff vibe before the playoffs because it's two teams that are right there with one another. They know they're probably not going to see each other to the conference finals, but good yardstick game, as I like to call it, good measuring stick game there. But yeah, when you look at the Red Wings, they've got 84 points. The Caps have 83 points. So much more important for Washington to maybe get that second point tonight if they can get it. But like you said, you'd rather get 2 with the other side getting none. Game going to overtime at that point, and each team getting a point is not really helping anybody unless you get that second point there. So, Ant, what do you got for tonight? You are on the same page? Mute.
Sorry, gentlemen, a little off to start for me, but
Still doing better than the bottom 3 Metro teams right now. So
yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you put it in the rundown, but must win for Philly. Like, there is no doubt. What are they, losers of 7 already now in a row? They are free falling, and I had a feeling that the whole change in net was not going to be helpful, especially down this stretch trying to make a playoff spot here. I think I'm most intrigued. This may be a little different, but I think that the Rangers and Islanders is the game for me to watch. Obviously, the Rangers trying to hold on to that President's Trophy. At the top, I think they're 3 points ahead of Dallas, who has 107. They got 110. And the Islanders are holding on to that, second to last spot, how they've changed over the last couple of weeks and inched their way back into a playoff spot there. But Rangers, I think, winners of 3 in a row. Islanders, winners of 4 in a row. So that means someone's got to lose. And we'll see which team comes out here on top. But I think that the battle of the Metro teams here, and that big rivalry. I don't know. Is it a big rivalry between? I know the Rangers Devils have a big rivalry. I think that's bigger than Rangers Islanders.
So Rangers Islanders historically is a huge rivalry, but the problem is that rivalry was heated in the 70s when the Islanders first came in the league and they were the little brother, and then they actually knocked the Rangers out a couple of times and they met a bunch in the playoffs, and then up through like 94, yes, like the Rangers beat the Islanders in the first round of the playoffs pretty handedly. And then for like the next 15 to 20 years, they were never really competitive at the same time. So yeah, you're taught, I don't like the Islanders or I don't like the Rangers if you're a fan of one or the other. But, and yeah, you still don't like the other team and it's still a rivalry, but they've never had, at least in the last 25 years or so, 30 years, a time where they were both consistently competitive, going at each other in the standings. Like I would love to see that point at some point, but we dislike each other, but we haven't ever really been competitive at the same time.
Let me ask you this question real quick, because we both kind of deal with this in baseball because you're a Yankees fan. I'm a Mets fan. The Yankees are the big brothers to the Mets. So, right, 26 world champions to 2. Is that the same kind of feeling between the Rangers and the Islanders? Because the Islanders, they had that epic, 4-year run, that dynasty run.
So I'll say the behavior of the Ranger fans comparative to the Yankee fans is yes, like that. But yeah, the Rangers have a cup more recently. But if you look at their histories, the Rangers have been around a hell of a lot longer, and they both have 4. And the Islanders 4 is one of the best runs in sports history, 4 championships in a row. So yeah, the Rangers act like they're the bigger brother. And yeah, maybe year in, year out, if you're factoring in the last 20, 30 years, they are the better team. But when it comes to rings, I mean, in a short amount of span, the Islanders have a lot more. But, again, maybe that'll matter at some point in life, and those games will matter more than just for bragging rights and, the fights in the stands. One other one to keep an eye on tonight before we move on. Kings Ducks, they may not jump out at you on paper, but if I'm watching the Kings tonight, you're going into Anaheim, you're jockeying with Vegas for that wild card spot and the 3 spot with the Pacific. The Oilers, I think, have moved enough ahead that they don't got to worry about the Kings. Go out and beat the crap out of the Ducks tonight. Seriously, like if you're a playoff team, you want and I know the Ducks will put up a fight. I know Zegras is back, but like Show that you are. This is a good chance to tee off you. Now, speaking of the Vegas Golden Knights, tomorrow night they're going to be playing the Edmonton Oilers. That should be fantastic. But Tomas Hertl made his Vegas debut last night. He got his first point with the Golden Knights, a secondary assist on their third goal of the game from, I believe that was a Noah Hannafin power play goal. Despite being a center, they're so deep down the middle, they played him on the left side of the second line with Chandler Stevenson and Michael Amadio. First, before we get into like how he's going to impact the Vegas Golden Knights here, what sacrifice did the Lightning Golden Knights make that they have this ability to flaunt the cap rules and get away with it? And where do the rest of us fans sign up? That's what I want to know.
Look, man, good cap management. Tomas Hertl ironically comes back at the same exact time that they have just enough cap space for him to come out. It's wonderful. I don't know how some of these teams need to hire, some deep analytic guys in terms of crunching cap numbers and see how they can circumvent. I don't know. There's got to be something under the table. It's like in all those fantasy hockey leagues that you got where you'll make a trade with somebody else and you're like, hey man, I'll also throw in a beer. Like the beer is under the table, but it's off the record and you can't count it as collusion. Now I will neither confirm nor deny if I have done that because I'm not going to out myself in saying that I have participated in collusion in fantasy hockey. I'm just saying that, these conversations may or may not happen. And I'm assuming that's what's happening in the NHL here because the timing is just, it's on there, man. I'm Tomas Hertl. Same thing with Nikita Kucherov that year. Even if they don't need the money, I'm playing the Powerball. See what I can hit. If I'm that lucky.
At least they didn't make it so obvious as to wait till like game 81 to bring him back, but still.
True. That they're going to wait for Mark Stone and then wait till he, maybe the start. Game 1 of the playoffs, I expect Mark Stone to be suited up and just looking fantastic.
Look, like Chris said, there's someone in the front office, someone in the back who's tasked to read the NHL handbook and is reading Rule 75.82 and figures this whole thing out on how to, circumvent the cap space and make themselves available to make moves like the Tomas Hertl move or do what Tampa has done in the past. So, yeah, it's got to definitely be someone in the back. All teams probably should have this. And there are other sports that do this as well. And other teams got to get on board and figure it out so that the playing field is kind of even. But until they do, there are teams like this who are going to take advantage of it. And it's not illegal. So they're doing everything the right way so far as we know.
So far as
don't hate the player, right? Hate the game. That's
absolutely.
They're operating within the rules. They've given them the rules, and they're doing exactly what they needed to do. Also, fun fact: you pointed out Rule 75.2. Nobody asked, but that is the clarification of a minor penalty for an unsportsmanlike conduct shall be assessed under this rule. So there you go. It has nothing to do with cap circumvention, but
good for you pulling that up quick.
Look at just like I wonder what Rule 75.2 is. Just while we're here, but
that only happens here on Total Hockey Now. Just
exactly.
So everyone
Where
knows,
else can you get Rule 75.2 explaining how an unsportsmanlike conduct will be given as a minor? But yes, again, some people may not like it, but these teams have won championships. They use the tools that are around them. They play within the rules until you can no longer do it. Then hey, keep doing it, right? That's it.
Now, when you look at what he's actually bringing to the lineup here, so we know the Vegas top line is going to be Eichel with Barbashev and Marchessault, so that's not changing. But that second line, when Stone comes back, he's going to play on the right side. You're going to have Hertl, Chandler Stevenson, and Mark Stone. My God. So now, with that in mind, with everybody healthy, power rank the Canucks, Knights, and Oilers heading into the playoffs when everyone's at full health. We'll keep the Demko injury aside for now because we don't know what that's going to look like for Vancouver. But Vegas is just described. How do those three teams rank for you?
I will give Edmonton the top spot. I know they don't have the depth. They just have the best player in the whole world. And he made, it doesn't matter how many, when you need, I know you guys don't know, but in Canada, we have these dollars and they're in a coin, right? It's not a paper.
A loonie.
And a loonie, exactly. And you put this in a machine. Sometimes, even if you got 4 quarters, but the machine only takes a loonie, the 4 quarters are no good. You need a loonie. right? And this is the case. Like, you could have multiple players and put them together, and sure, you may get the equivalent of a Connor McDavid in terms of points and stats and all that, but you will not get Connor and you will not get Draisaitl. And those two are going to drag this team as far as they can. And I think the addition of Corey Perry is good. I think if look at Zach Hyman and what he's been able to do, look at, whatever Evander Kane can give you. It's all about their depth. They don't have the depth, and that's a problem. I'll give Vegas 2, though, assuming that Mark Stone is healthy. I think they are the deeper team on the blue line of all 3 teams. Their goaltending has not been what it was last season. It has been extremely shaky at times. They lost again yesterday, and Logan Thompson didn't look good at all. So, the health of Aiden Hill, Logan Thompson hasn't played really well. He's been hurt as well. I don't know. I would probably like to see Hertl play the second line center role, and then play Stone on one side and then Mantha on the other, and then maybe move Chandler Stevenson down to that third line, maybe move Amadio down. I just want to see that, because even if you have a line like Carlson, and Stevenson, they can go up and play against the best players. I don't want my top guys having to deal with that responsibility every single given night. So I'll go there. And then by default, I'll just, nothing wrong with Vancouver. I don't think, again, like you said, Thatcher Demko, we don't know. I don't know how great defensively this team is going to be yet. They've done well. I think Quinn Hughes has done well. The rest of the gang is okay. They've tailed off a little bit from their absolutely red hot start, and they've come back down to earth a little bit. Elias Pettersson has cooled off extremely now. He can't buy a point in his last 5 games. So they've come back down a little bit to earth here. But when you look at elite players and players who can take control of a game, McDavid does that better than anybody. Vegas has won a Stanley Cup. They know exactly what they need to do. They've added more pieces to get better. And then through no fault of their own, Vancouver's just third.
What do you got, Ant? You're 3. 1 to 3.
So we're talking 1 to 3. We're talking all healthy in playoff positioning here.
And how do we power rank them? And we'll do a little twist here. We'll do a Vancouver with Demko and without Demko. And I assume we all have Vancouver without Demko as 3. So maybe we just assume Demko is healthy, then power rank.
I think with Demko and without Demko, I still have them third.
Okay.
Vancouver kind of reminds me of the Devils last year, right? Vancouver was terrible last season. They come in and they're having this really good season, but I could see them, getting out in the first or second round, even with a healthy Demko, because they haven't really seen this type of playoff, hockey in a while. I'm going to go number 1. I'm going to go Vegas with all the experience that they have coming off a Stanley Cup championship. I know that Chris said that the goaltending has not been great, but, maybe once you are finally in the playoffs, maybe those guys that played so well last, like Aiden Hill, maybe he comes back and is Aiden Hill again from the playoffs. Edmonton, I have to see them actually, start winning. Like, they do have the best player in hockey, but they have yet to get past their demons in the playoffs. So that's my only concern with Edmonton. Maybe they are ready to take that next step this year, but until I see it, it's hard to put them up there. So I'm not taking anything away from them. But when you're the reigning Stanley Cup champions, and maybe you have the opportunity to bring back Mark Stone, who was a big part of that whole run, then you're adding Thomas Hertl to that. I can't go against Vegas right now with that. So that's why I got Vegas, Edmonton, Vancouver.
I agree with you with Vegas at the top. I think this team is still, Hertl just played his first game. Hannafin's got a few games there. I think he's just starting to find his place in there and gel into the lineup. So I really like Vegas's makeup. So them 1. If Demko is healthy, I think they get such a boost from that. I think especially now because they know life with him and without him, and you can see the difference when that guy and that's no knock on Casey DeSmith and stuff like that, but nobody was expecting Casey DeSmith to have to carry the load, and look what happened. So when Demko comes back, I think that maybe gives the Canucks a boost. And like you said, Edmonton with their playoff demons, and I think this year is definitely got a different vibe to it, different coach. Stu Skinner seems to be in good shape. It seems like they're playing a more defensive game. Things like are going right, but I got to see it. So if Demko's healthy, I would put Vancouver 2, Edmonton 3. No Demko, then I flip those around. So still plenty of things to determine here in the Pacific Division. Now, a former Pacific Division team, but still in need of a home, is the Arizona Coyotes. Now, there was an update with the site that they wanted to get in Scottsdale. Mayor David Ortega said Scottsdale has no water assets available to service a new hockey arena near the city, and they aren't welcome to bring their proposed arena to northern Scottsdale unless that's rectified. The Coyotes declined to comment on Mayor Ortega's opinion. There's no infrastructure west of Scottsdale Road in this area. So what he's concerned about is if you bring an arena in, which obviously is going to need a massive water supply, it's going to drain the resources and impact the residents there. So that is now the hang up with the Coyotes finding a home somewhere in the greater Phoenix proper area. And, it's not over yet because there's an auction coming up in June that if they get the land, then they can worry about that stuff then. But I mean, Jesus Christ, you didn't think about getting water to a site when you were like, what did you just drive around and look for bare space and go, we could fit an arena there? Yeah. Let's try that next. What are we doing?
Why are they not playing where the Phoenix Suns are playing?
See, I like that what he did that. Well, so for similar reasons like Barclays Center with the Islanders when they moved there, the arena was built more towards optimizing basketball, and sometimes they don't want to share a building, and I don't know why they don't go back there, but I know Jeremy Roenick has said it in his autobiography that, when they played downtown, that was one of the best home environments he ever had. So
you know what? At this point, what Chris just wrote down there, can we just move him to Atlanta at this point? I'm tired of it.
No.
Go back. It's a little small, but you can see the queue there. There you go.
I mean, I want them in Quebec. I've been wanting Quebec forever. Like, I get them to Quebec. I'm okay with that. But like at this point, just pick a new place already. Like, enough for it. They're not going to get anywhere in Arizona. That's it. It's over with. How many?
You're telling me it's hard time finding water in the desert?
Yeah,
I'm shocked, absolutely shocked. Right.
And why wouldn't that be on your list of things to like check out, especially in a climate like that? Like, you want to know one of the real reasons that the old Yankee Stadium ended up having to be shut down? Because everybody wanted to have a winter classic at Yankee Stadium when it was brand new, and Wrigley got one and Fenway got one. It's like, oh, Yankee Stadium should get one too. Well, the problem is the plumbing was so old in the old Yankee Stadium that they could not guarantee warm water in the winter. The pipes, so, and you kind of need that to run an event of, 50, 60,000 people in attendance. So yes, that was one of the major reasons why old Yankee people like, oh, do the renovations. It's a historic building, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You go in and gut and redo a plumbing system for an entire stadium and tell me what that costs versus building a new one. Going off away here. But bottom line is, figure it out, Arizona. Like, shit or get off the pot at this point. Like,
it's nice that they want, like, the auction is good. And even when it came out, because whoever was the intern running the, Coyotes, Twitter handle was kind of going off on it. This is a 100% cash deal, which means they don't, they have money to buy the land. They're not going to get outbid. They're not, which is all good. And I'm sitting there going, man, I'm only going to believe it when I see a shovel in the ground and I see a building that comes up and I see a team playing in it. Until then, like, there's so many cities that they just don't want the team there. Right. And this is a reality that I just don't know. Like, there's I mean, it snowed here a week ago and there was ice everywhere. And it's something that we produce naturally. So for them to be like, hey, we don't have enough water and stuff, I'm like, man, like, electricity here in Quebec is nice and cheap. There's lakes and rivers and stuff. And Canada's got the most of those. Like, I'm just like, okay, what? But this could be a legitimate concern for them. People don't want the Coyotes there. It's not. Scottsdale's basically like, yeah, we don't, like, they're going down the list and saying, yeah, man, it's water. Next, we're going to hear like there's not enough grass, or like the sun is too hot, or just like take them out of there. Gary's sitting there going, we'll work on plumbing for the whole, like, what are you going to do? Get plumbing for all of northern Scottsdale now?
Like, at a certain, like, if this fails, I think it's like, this is it. You've had, like, we're not on strike 3. We're on strike like 12 at this point. Like,
yeah, it's failed already. It has failed already. Like what Gary must have like a list of like every town in Arizona, and he's like crossing them off. All the way at the bottom is a place that already has an arena made for this in Quebec, and they could move the team there. Like it would take what? Like not even like they don't have to play somewhere else for a while they build the stadium. The arena. The arena is there and waiting for them. They could move to Houston if they
Same to
want
Houston.
to. Like Houston's right there. Like, what are we doing?
And Houston,
Come on, Gary.
And Houston wouldn't require any realignment. They just stay in the Central, no problem. Dallas now has a brand spanking new cross-state rival, the Lone Star State. I mean, there's too many reasons to do it. But
just a friendly reminder: Gary hates Canada.
That's yeah. So.
Look, if they're not playing where the Phoenix Suns are playing, like there's really no conversation of staying in Arizona. To me,
this has to be if they fail to get the site at the auction, or if the water thing continues to be like enough's enough. Just stop trying to put the square peg into the round hole. You've been doing it now for about 15 years, 20 years, and it's not working. So
how's the water situation at wherever the Suns play? Do we know if it's good?
That's a
Do we
good
know
question.
if the piping is good there? Can
we
get the architect to tell us if there's enough piping and water in downtown wherever the Suns play?
I've never seen a Suns game where Kevin Durant or Devin Booker were talking or asking about the water. So I guess it's fine. But
things we didn't know we needed to ask before all of this happening.
It's not like you need water it's not like it's a building block of life or anything. Like who needs that? So there's quick hits for today. Now, before we get to the meat and potatoes of today's show, we're talking all the Stanley Cup potential possibilities for the playoff brackets. You got to talk a little Frozen Four here because Thursday kicks off the NCAA hockey's equivalent of the Final Four. Two great games coming up. BU versus Denver at 5 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, 8:30 Boston College, Michigan. Winners face off on Saturday night at 6 p.m. for the title. Let's start with Michigan, Boston College. To bring it to Total Hockey Now, it's basically Boston College's Montreal Canadiens prospects versus Michigan's two defensive prospects, Seamus Casey and Ethan Edwards, that are Devils prospects. So you two guys may have to make a little side bet on that one, although I'd probably take BC. Between these two schools, we have 7 of the top 10 scorers in the nation. Even if Michigan gets defenseman Seamus Casey back, and that would be a huge boost. I mean, Boston College just has that look of a team that's been on a mission. And, we're going to talk about this too in the next game here in a second. This is not going to really be a track meet. When you get to this level of hockey, it's not about outscoring the other team. It's about trying to limit and slow down the other team. And who's going to be better at that? Michigan, the Boston College is just much stronger, and it's going to be a good game. I think they put up a fight. But how do you pick against a team that's on a 14-game winning streak like Boston College? Will Smith, Carter Gauthier, Ryan Leonard, Gabe Perreault. I mean, there's just too much firepower there.
And also, let's not forget, Jacob Fowler, winning his goalie in NCAA history now, is also backstopping that team. So you have a plethora of just skill up front, right? Just a never-ending cycle of skill. And then, oh, by the way, you also have one, to me, arguably the best goalie in, college hockey. So I am going to be tuned into it. As somebody who does not care about college sports, I'm excited Thursday to, again, I will neither confirm nor deny if I will find any legal streaming site that will show it to me, because I doubt any of the regional ones are going to show that here. I might, because it's Thursday. I'm pretty sure Montreal plays, so they're not going to show, they're not going to take the Canadiens away from us so we can watch Boston University. So I may have to look for a potential, off-market, http:// website that may or may not be showing the game.
I mean, worst case, I can just FaceTime you with the phone looking at the TV.
There you go. See, that's
I didn't say I was going to do that. Nobody come and get me. It's
a hypothetical possibility.
It's just technologically possible. And here's the other thing too. I mean, BC, you talk about limiting and slowing the other team down. They've got one of the best turnover machines in the nation, and Eamon Powell on the blue line. So it's not that Michigan's not a good team. It's not, no disrespect to Michigan, but I got to take BC here. They're a wagon. There's just There's maybe Michigan shocks the world. I mean, Quinnipiac showed the recipe to beating Boston College. You got to jump them early, but they're so good you can't afford to make mistakes against them. So if Michigan plays a perfect game and plays mistake free, now you got a chance. Now the other game, BU Denver, this is going to be the better of the two matchups. They're mirror images of each other, but BU is the brand name everyone knows, and Denver is the just as effective store brand, at least when it comes to the name recognitions of the rosters. Both are top-heavy teams with depth and can score. Macklin Celebrini, we've talked about a bunch. Lane Hudson, Luke Tuck, Ryan Green, Shane LaChance. Terriers are loaded. Pioneers boast Jack Devine, Tristan Braz, Carter King, Massimo Rizzo, and the Boyan brothers. This will, again, be a who can shut down the other team better situation, and I give that edge to Denver because of the Boyan brothers. If it does turn into like an up and down scoring game, as good and deep as BU is, Denver is the top scoring team in the nation. So I think, like I said, I think Denver could pull off the upset here, and I'm leaning that way. I've got a BC Denver final, but I still got BC taking it all.
I want to see Boston University take this one as well. I also want to, not that I care for Boston in general, but BC versus BU in the final, I could get behind that. Lots of Montreal Canadian prospects in there. You got the future, the next first overall pick in the tournament as well. It's good for hockey. I think you could sell, not that you're going to have a hard time selling that to the whole nation about watching it, especially if you're a hockey fan in the Northeast. But I mean, Denver is a good team. They've earned their stripes. They've gotten there. They worked hard. And like you said, one of the highest scoring teams. So they deserve to be there. There's no question about that. For me, it's watching Lane Hudson, the way that he skates, his offense. Like, he's good defensively, but this is a guy who just pushes the play up. And when you're a team that has to deal with three forwards and you also have a defenseman who can jump up in the rush and make good decisions and just, push that extra envelope a little bit, becomes really hard to defend. Like, it's tough to defend three forwards, and then you throw a defenseman in there as well who likes to jump up. Man, I don't know how. Like, Denver may have to wait for their chances, kind of, play calm, play it out, to, kind of your rope and dope here a little bit, and then capitalize on the chances that you're going to get. But I want to see both Boston teams go out, because I want my cake and I want to eat it.
I think it will be a great matchup, but I think Denver's got what it takes. Two quick things here before we move on to the Metropolitan and the wild card races. Hobie Baker finalist, that's going to be announced today between the Frozen Four and the championship game. Macklin Celebrini is probably a lock. You also got BC's Cutter Gauthier and North Dakota's Jackson Blake in the mix as well. And kind of related, so they call the Denver Pioneers, they call them the Pios. Now, I spent 5 years working in veterinary medicine, and a pio and just medicine in general is an infection of the uterus. So like when they say the pios, the first thing that comes to mind is pyometra. And like, I have to make that transition. So like, that's just my own issue. Anytime they call them the pios, that's what I think. Anyway.
You get medical advice here, and you get rule advice as well. 75.2.
Yeah, we're a very broad, renaissance-y kind of hockey podcast here. We cover it all. Now, let's go to If the Playoffs Started Today, which has become one of our favorite segments to do here as we get closer and closer to the playoffs here. Matchups in the East, you're going to see them scroll across the screen right now. You got Florida versus Toronto, Boston versus Tampa Bay, Hurricanes versus Isles, Red Wings versus Rangers, with the Penguins, Capitals, and Flyers still all in the mix for a playoff spot there. Now, when you look at the East, I don't think the Islanders or Red Wings would be capable of pulling off an upset on the Hurricanes or Rangers. But who would you give the better upset chance to between Toronto versus Florida or Tampa Bay versus Boston?
Well, it's not the Leafs that we can,
Okay, well, that was quick.
I'm here for Leafs Nation to cry again. Let's just, in case anybody was confused.
Even with Florida struggling lately, no chance.
Doesn't matter. Florida's the better overall team. Like, Toronto has gone out. Like, I see a lot of people talking extremely positive about, Joel Edmondson. And I'm like, hey, look, if he was so good, why has everybody tried to move on from him and cap dumped him? You know what I mean? Like, I get it. He plays a certain style, which is nice. And he was very instrumental in, Montreal's playoff run. Absolutely. 100%. He was a key for it. Because, there were a lot of guys at that point that didn't play much. Kulak and Romanov barely played. You basically had Petrie, Sherratt, Weber, and Edmondson on the ice. That was it. You rolled 4D and you hoped for the best, and most nights it came out well. But like Joel Edmondson doesn't, he's not going to move the needle very much. Like he's not going to play 25 minutes. He's going to play maybe 17 if you're lucky. The same thing with guys like Ilya Lyubushkin. Like they're going to play 15 to 17. They're not moving the needle very much. It's your other four that got to be good. And man, like I don't even know what those four are that are going to make it. The Florida Panthers are a much better team all around. They're deeper, they're more physical, they're strong. They're all of that. They are a team that demonstrated that they can get to the Stanley Cup Finals playing the way that they did. And Toronto has demonstrated that they cannot get to, like, they've gotten past the first round once. Good for you. Not giving them it. I will say this, though. Boston Tampa Bay, I think, would be a good series. I think it would be good. I could see Tampa Bay take it, but man, I mean, Boston has gotten there, but I still don't know how they've done it. And Nikita Kucherov is on a whole other level. He has 50 more points than his next teammate, who is Braden Point, by the way, who's no pushover. So, like, trying to slow him down, I feel like is an impossible task. I do also think that playoff Andrei Vasilevsky is a different breed. Like, he can steal a game for his team whenever he decides. And when he's in it, like, that's it. You can't get past him. I think the health as well of Mikhail Sergachev. He was skating recently in a non-contact jersey. Another player coming back just as LTIR doesn't matter anymore. So, again, if Tampa Bay's healthy, everybody's in the lineup. They went out to get Duclair, add a little bit of scoring to that team. They're a good team. I think they could give Boston a run for their money. I don't know if they take it, but I think they can push it.
I agree. I'm with Chris on this one. Boston, Tampa. That's the series I'm looking forward to the most out of the East. And with Vasilevsky in Tampa Bay, that's the only option I would choose, is to see Tampa do it. And Boston really hasn't had to overcome any adversity this entire season. I feel like that's what also plagued them in the playoffs last year, right? Like they kind of ran roughshod over everybody. And then you get to the playoffs and they go to game 7 and it's a struggle. So I feel like if there's any team that's going to pull off an upset, it would be Tampa. Pulling it off of Boston. And even then, I don't know how much of an upset that really is, because, we know what Tampa can do in the playoffs. They have the stars, they have the goaltending, and they can definitely get it done. An upset to me would be, Isles over the Hurricanes, and obviously the Red Wings over the Rangers, which I don't see happening at all.
See, the funny thing is, you said they haven't had to overcome any adversity this season. And coming into the year, what did we all talk about? Oh, they lose Bergeron, they lost Krejci, they got no centers. And it was never an issue. Like for maybe the first few games where they were finding their footing, maybe it was a little bumpy, and then they were fine. So, it's something to consider.
But is that the problem now when you're going into the playoffs, right? Now that you've lost two big components that have gotten you so far into the playoffs with the Bergeron and the Krejci, now you don't have those guys, and you're counting on, the new pieces that although they played well during the season, how well are they going to play when it comes time to the playoffs?
No, I mean, I guess that's why they say the proof's in the pudding, right? We'll see what Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle and in expanded roles in the second NHL season where things go up a notch. We'll see how they handle it. Now, before we take a look at the West matchups, you got a little breaking news there, I believe, Ant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how big of breaking news is because the Devils are really out of it now, so it really doesn't mean much. But Jack Hughes is out for the rest of the season. He's going to have shoulder surgery. It kind of is what it is. It was meant to be shut down, especially since the Devils had kind of fell apart since the Stadium Series, which was, I guess, their Stanley Cup playoff right there. That only game there. That was the best day we had, and quickly got taken away after that. But Jack Hughes finishes the season 27 goals, 47 assists, has 74 points, second in the team in scoring behind Jesper Bratt, and it sucks, but I hope this is not a trend with Jack Hughes being injured. He was injured last year, the year before that. I hope that we get to a point where this guy's body can hold up, because he's to me, he's a star in the league. I don't know how everybody else feels about him, but coming out of New Jersey with you got the stars in New York with the Rangers and all across the league. Nice to have our own in Jack Hughes.
Now, I'll say this. There's really, if he is banged up, maybe if the Devils are in the thick of the playoff mix and have a legitimate chance, Maybe they sit him out a game or two and they play him. There's no point in playing Jack Hughes down the stretch. This is your franchise cornerstone. This is there's just literally no reason to trot him out there if there's any chance of making an injury worse or having this linger deep in, just shut him down. I think that's the smart move now. As somebody that has a fantasy final this week, one of the leagues I'm in, and now losing Jack Hughes, I knew he was out, but now I got him the whole week. I'm going to have to figure that out. But that's besides the point. Smart move here by the Devils. Look ahead to next season. Now, looking out west, Dallas, Vegas would be a hell of a first-round matchup. I don't think that one sticks. Colorado, Winnipeg is looking like a collision course at this point with Dallas slowly pulling ahead there. And it doesn't look like Nashville would catch Winnipeg for that third spot. Then you got the Canucks and the Predators, and then the Oilers and the Kings. Dallas, Vegas would be quite the first-round matchup right there. And, Canucks, Predators, Thatcho Demko-less Canucks. All of a sudden, the Predators have a chance in that series.
Is it crazy that I'm really not interested in the East, but I continue to be interested in every series in the West, even Oilers Kings, because we don't, like I said earlier, until the Oilers prove that they are ready to take, a leap in the playoffs and overcome their demons. I mean, the Kings have been there too. They won a round last season. I mean, anything can happen. These four matchups just interest me way more than the four in the East. Maybe it's because like the Islanders and Red Wings are backing in and they really have no shot to me. But like everyone in the West, I feel like has a shot. Like you mentioned, if Demp goes out, the Predators have an opportunity here. The Kings, you can't take lightly, even though they're playing the Oilers. Colorado, Winnipeg, that's a nice matchup. Dallas, Vegas. I mean, Hertl's coming back, and you don't know if Mark Stone will come back. These are great matchups in the West.
I love them.
I wish they would just maybe go through a 1-16 kind of format this year. That way you truly get some top, we don't waste some of these teams in the first round. That's how they used to do it eons ago. It'll never happen again.
I think the matchup that intrigues me the most would be Dallas and Vegas, just because Dallas is they're so deep. They're a good road team as well. And like Vegas has the pieces to do it, right? Like their depth is there, healthy. I think they could give Dallas at least a run for their money. I don't know if they'd be able to get by them, but I feel like that series would, with everybody healthy, that would be a series to watch. I feel like it would go deep and you'd have a lot of those like momentum swings in the game, kind of just like, one team takes off with it and then the other one comes back with it. It would interest me. Even the Oilers and the Kings. I mean, I want to see what the Oilers are made of. And the Kings have always kind of had Edmonton's number. They've always been able to at least contain McDavid and Draisaitl enough for them to win a series. So how much more can you get out of a guy like Anze Kopitar? Like how much can you get out of guys like Philip Deneau? What are you going to get out of Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's there? Like there's still some question marks in that lineup, but it would definitely be a lot of fun to watch. Colorado, Winnipeg, I think would be a good battle of, Colorado's high-powered offense and then, Winnipeg being stellar in goal and stellar defensively. Can they withhold that? Does Colorado have enough depth to get through? I mean, we don't even talk about Gabriel Landeskog. Who knows, if his knee is even going to be ready to play. Man hasn't played hockey in what seems like eons. And then the Canucks and the Predators. The Predators have come back down to earth a little bit here, but they're still a team that's they went on a run to get there. I wouldn't discredit it. If I was a Vancouver Canuck fan, I wouldn't look at the Predators and just think that that they're going to be an easy walk in the park. I think they would give the Canucks a lot of trouble.
I mean, in that matchup, if Demko's not healthy, the goaltending advantage goes to Nashville and UC Saros. So that's a huge X factor right there. But we'll go to the East in a second. We'll finish up the West. We'll go back to the East and talk about that in a second. Let's finish up the West. One thing that I find interesting is with Edmonton right now. Evander Kane, not the most popular guy in the Oilers locker room right now. He's not giving them what they need. Corey Perry basically undressed him on the bench, and it's going to be a lot of tough love for him, and it's going to be interesting to see how he responds because, earlier in the year, Kane was, doing well for them, and he's kind of just faded off into oblivion here the last few weeks. So, and if the Oilers are going to go deep, if they're going to beat the Kings or the Knights or whoever, they need Kane to play. And just to go back to Anthony's point here for a second, as we transition to the East, usually in a situation like the West, like the Blues and the Wild they're still mathematically alive, but nobody is going to give them a chance at a wild card spot. Normally in a situation like that where the teams are locked in its positioning, that's where there's no intrigue. versus the East, where it's like, well, we still have the Metro 3, we still have the Wild Card 2, all this positioning, and it's like we know who the hell cares which of these two teams emerge because they're just going to get smacked around in the first round anyway. So speaking of which, let's go back to those teams here. Let's go back to the East, and it's all about Detroit. We've talked about Tampa Bay kind of being locked into that Wild Card 1. So again, it's Detroit, Islanders, Penguins, Flyers, Capitals, all competing for Wild Card 2. And then Islanders, Pens, Flyers, Capitals competing for that third Metro spot here. So after the way everything has looked, we talked about this last week. Now you get a temp take here again. Where do we think these teams rank? Where do we think who finishes Metro 3, who gets the Wild Card 2? And if we got to pull up schedules to go through it, I think we need to do that.
Do it. Let's do it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a big factor into where I can't believe that Pittsburgh has wiggled their way back into this. They were left for dead for about 95% of this season and have somehow are, tied for that final wild card spot with Detroit.
I mean, at the deadline, I know Crosby was not happy about that. They were sellers and stuff like that. I mean, you got that much talent and that much, winning experience in the room. They're not going to just sulk off into the regular season ending there, especially if they have a chance. And it surprises me and it doesn't surprise me because of who's in the locker room. But yeah, I mean, we pretty much had them written off for dead. And now, I don't know. I think they could maybe pull it off. Well, let's take a look. You mentioned the Penguins here. Let's go with the Penguins schedule. Let's bring that up on the screen. So let's scroll down here. All right. So they've got 4 games left. They got the Red Wings coming up on Thursday.
Right off the bat, that's a huge game. Both of them tied for the final points. That is the pendulum swinger right there.
So is that a borderline? We'll call, not to say eliminate. It's not officially an elimination game, but the team that loses that, unless it's like an overtime where both teams get a point and then it's a second point. Yeah,
I would have to see who Detroit plays next because you look at Boston. That's a tough matchup for Pittsburgh, and then you got Nashville. That's another tough one. And then the Islanders could also be vying with the Islanders for one of those 2 spots because they're 1 point behind the Islanders.
Yeah, and that could also become a play-in game too. You said you want to look at the Red Wings schedule, so let's take a look at that right there. They obviously we talked about the Capitals matchup tonight being huge at Pittsburgh. We just talked about, and then they go at Toronto and home with Montreal to finish the year. So you got to assume they're going to at least get 2 out of those 4 potential points in Montreal, probably 3, maybe 4. The Toronto game, we'll see what Toronto's playing for at that point. But yeah, it's Detroit's got to go through the next. We'll see how Detroit comes out of these next 2 games. Be very indicative of what their postseason is going to look like.
Well, then this goes to Chris because can Montreal steal a game here from a team that's trying to vie their way into the playoffs? Can they play spoiler?
I think they can on home ice. They could probably do so. I don't know if they're going into Detroit on a back-to-back and trying to steal one there. Montreal's been decent at home. It's always a question of defense and scoring. Montreal, despite not having anything to play for, they have a lot of players who are going to want to say, hey, I want to be here next year, or hey, this is, they got guys who still have things that they got to prove, especially on the blue line, right? There's a lot of young players. Arbor Jackie's done for the year. He had shoulder surgery. Christian Dvorak's going to be back in the lineup tonight. So they're there's something to be had for those teams that are just absolutely bottomed. They have things to play for, specifically the players do, and management wants to see, hey, what are we working with here? It's your last kind of push to say, hey, these, this is the team that we are. This is the players that we are. So I do think Detroit has a chance here, but they have a schedule that works, but they have to get it done. And it's as simple as that. And then their last, they went through that losing streak. They lost some real key games. They lost to Nashville. They lost to Washington. You can't do that. If you lose to Carolina, you lose to Florida, it happens. Tampa Bay, they beat Tampa Bay tough, in Tampa too. And then, no show against the Rangers, against Buffalo. They kind of held on, took them a minute to get there. if I had to pick here, I would give the 3rd spot to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I would give the 4th spot to Detroit.
So wild
Those
card
are
2
the
to
teams.
Detroit. And
Wild card 2 to Detroit, M3 to Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh looked like a team that was dead, and then all of a sudden Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin were like, "Not on my watch. We're gonna do this, right? We're gonna go out and we're gonna make it happen." They have beaten some good teams. They beat the Rangers. They beat Tampa Bay. Like they beat Washington. They beat New Jersey. Like good. All those stars. I mean, look at those stars. Nedeljkovic is just taken over. It's as if Christian.
Yes.
It's as if Christian Jerry has died, and he's not. And Nedeljkovic has just come in here and run. And we've seen goalies who just get hot and they just push here. That matchup against Detroit is going to be absolutely critical, right? At home here, tough matchup against Boston, sure. But it's one of those things that you got to beat good teams to get in. And then the same thing with you got to beat Nashville. And then, maybe one of those key matchups here against the Islanders. We'll see what they can give here. The one ick here for Pittsburgh is they only have 4 games left. So they have to go out here and really, probably sweep the board if they want to have a chance of winning.
And all either playoff teams or a potential playoff team in the Islanders. They got no Jimmys on their schedule. They're in control of their own fate, and you got a tough, Boston's going to be a tough one, although maybe, by then, because they might be trying to lock up the division in that game. Nashville, who knows, because they're going to be jockeying for wild card 1-2 there. So at West.
If you're a team like Pittsburgh, that's what you want, right? You want to control your destiny. If you win, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to scoreboard watch. You don't have to do anything. Win and you're in, kind of thing. And they've done that here since the beginning of April. They've come in. They said, "Hey, we're going to win."
The good thing for them is that the 3 out of their 4 games are at home. They're, that they've had a winning record at home, whereas in Detroit, who's got 3 games away, 16, 19, and 3. So they don't have, such a great time playing away from Detroit, and that could be a major factor in when it comes down to these last couple of games here. So I think I'm bought in right now on Pittsburgh, because Detroit's just been way too up and down just the entire season, and that's concerning to me.
Now we pull up the Islanders schedule on the screen. They got 2 against the Rangers, a game against Montreal, a game at New Jersey, and then a Pittsburgh game at the end that we talked about that could potentially be a play-in game. I think they can get one of those 2 against the Rangers. New Jersey at that point probably going to be packing it in. Montreal, we'll see what happens there. So the Islanders have a chance to, and if they lose both Ranger games, it might be tough. But if they can get one of those Ranger games, I think they'll be okay. Let's look at the Capitals schedule here. They've got an interesting mix. We talked about the game at Detroit tonight. They got to go play Buffalo, who, they're not going to the playoffs, but they still play tough. Got a game against Tampa, a game against Boston, and then a game at Philadelphia. We'll get to their schedule in a minute. They're a team that has 4 games left as well, like the Penguins. It's a mixed bag here. Charlie Lindgren has looked awful lately. He was the one saving grace for the Capitals this year when Kemper sucked. Now he hasn't looked good lately. I've guessed if they beat Detroit tonight in a convincing fashion, I'll buy into them a little bit more. But right now, out of all the teams here, besides the Flyers, I probably have the least amount of faith in the Capitals.
Yeah. And you look at obviously the strength and travel too, going to Detroit, going to Buffalo, then they're going to come home for a couple games, then they're going to go to Philadelphia. And whereas the Islanders, they kind of get to stay in the metro area for most of the games. And then I think they go up to Montreal, right? Oh, no, they're home for that one. Okay.
They don't leave. They get to sleep. They get to sleep in their bed for the next week and a half.
Yeah. I think the strength and schedule helps the Islanders, especially with the traveling. I think that's going to be good for them to kind of finish out the season.
Now, let's just take a look at the Flyers schedule here. Just, we'll make sure we're thorough. We talked about the game at Montreal tonight. Then they got to go play the Rangers on Thursday, which, let's face it, the Rangers, also like the Bruins, could be trying to maybe lock up a division or come close to it by then. And then they got the Devils and then the Capitals, which, we talked a couple of weeks ago how that could potentially be a playing game. I have a feeling that's going to be a game where both teams just get eliminated right before it somehow. Like, just mathematically, or they're going to need some sort of crazy thing where only one team can get 2 points, and they need the Islanders or the Penguins, whoever's lower in the standings, to higher in the standings, to lose in regular. I have no faith in that game mattering at this point. For me, I think as long as the Red Wings don't embarrass themselves, they get those 2 games at the end where they can kind of just, make up the points they need. I got them getting the wild card too. I'm torn between the Penguins and the Islanders here. I think at this point, I'm going to say it's going to come down to that April 17th game for that Metro 3 spot is what I think is going to occur there.
Look, I hate to compare to my Mets sorrow, but 2022, the Mets led the division from beginning to almost the last weekend of the season. The Flyers have been in a playoff spot, which pretty much no one thought was coming for most of the season, and have now kind of just fallen off the face of the earth. And I think that they are done. I am with with how well all the other teams are playing, the Islanders and Pittsburgh and Detroit to some certain extent. I think the Flyers are done, in my opinion.
I mean, they've lost 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row, 8 of 9.
They don't have a goalie.
10 of 30. I mean, they're tonight's their get right spot. They if they beat Montreal, maybe they start feeling good about themselves. But if they lose tonight and they have to go into the Garden on Thursday and win, that's not a recipe for success.
I'm going to say they have no shot at beating the Rangers.
There you go. Right.
I mean, it's more of the question of you drop a game at home to Chicago. You can't do that, right? You go into Montreal, no
Columbus.
show. You lose there. I mean,
you
go to
a killer.
The Columbus one as well. You go into Buffalo Friday or Saturday, you got to come out with at worst, come out with a win. At least put an end to your losing streak. No, they go into Buffalo, no show. Then they let 6 goals, right? You allow 6 goals, all to defensemen. All to defensemen. The Columbus Blue Jackets of all teams. You go in there, no effort, no show, just kind of doesn't happen. You put yourself in that spot, right? You did not come out to perform, and that is
I mean, when you talk about offensive blue lines, it's Colorado and then Columbus is right there.
Adam, can you go up one in the schedule, right? Because they lost 7 in a row, right?
Yeah.
Look at all 7 of these games. They have given up 4 or more goals in every one of these games, and they've only 1, 1, 1, 2, 2. They're not scoring either. It's not like tit for tat. They're just getting crushed in all of these games.
It's like they're spite missing the playoffs because so everybody wrote Philly off as a team that's not in playoff contention, and then they hang around in the 3 spot all year long. And then when we finally start to be like, all right, fine, they're a scrappy team, they're decent, they're probably a playoff team. Let's go right. That's what you get for believing in the Flyers. That's the moral there.
I don't know. I felt like I can't think of his name. The head coach. I feel like
Tortorella.
Yeah, Tortorella. I feel like I thought he would have more of a grasp on these guys and stop this kind of a losing streak, and he just has not.
I think they've been overachieving all year, and then the Carter Hart thing just totally derailed whatever momentum they had. And because the rest of the Metropolitans sucked, they stayed in the 3 a lot longer than most other teams probably would have held that spot because the teams below them couldn't get their act together.
Yeah, because I was going to say Carter Hart, they lost. That was at the beginning of the season.
It was a couple months into the season. It was early in the season. And think about it like this: teams that we wrote off they've been so bad that they've allowed the Penguins back into the picture. They've allowed the Capitals to hang around. They've allowed
let's face it, none of those teams deserve it. None of them deserve it.
Even the Devils were still hanging around here. They didn't deserve to be in a playoff
all these
spot.
teams have all these this hope, and the fan base is maybe, and I'm okay, but in a real world, you guys don't exist. You're not there. You're the worst of the gang. That's great, but you're the worst still. You're at the bottom tier of it.
So yeah, well, we got another week and a half. The regular season ends next week on Thursday, I believe, or Wednesday. So we'll check in. I'm looking forward to that Penguins Islanders game. That could really have some meaning there, especially if the Capitals and the Flyers keep trending downward in the direction they are. Now, normally we would do something called sweater weather here, but guess what? On Saturday, it is National Hockey Card Day, which is a holiday that Upper Deck invented. And if Hallmark can invent holidays, then why can't Upper Deck invent a holiday that'll help boom their business? So any excuse to go out and buy hockey cards at your local hobby shop is a great reason to do it. I love that they're doing it on the last Saturday of the regular season because it's a nice thing you could set your watch to, maybe a little attention and with baseball going on and the playoffs right around the corner. So as you may know, I also do a show with Jared Moore called Rip and Riff. So we're going to give a little taste of that today. And we're going to do a little pack rip here of some 21, 22 Upper Deck MVP hockey cards, 28 card hanger pack. And we're going to bring up the Rip Cam here, which I love.
Beautiful.
Yeah, let's go. All right. So, and Rip and Riff, you can catch that on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Let's get the Rip sound here that we all like.
Sounds relaxing.
Of course, it's going to be a pain to open them when it's live, right? There we go. Let's see. All right, let's see what we got in the pack here. So right out of the back, you got a Ryan Getzlaf last card, as we like to call it. That was his last year before he retired. So Getzlaf, whose hair left him long before his career left him. But, you know, I mean, I shouldn't talk because my hairline is not in great shape, and I'm probably going to be bald soon anyway. Marc-Andre Fleury, everyone's favorite, pictured with the Golden Knights there. Let's see.
Nice.
Else.
His prank that he pulled on Jonathan Duhaime, just
Epic.
That alone put him in the Hall of Fame for that. That was, you knew it was coming. Like, if you don't know, you should probably go see. But that prank that he, like, I knew he was going to do something, but it was nowhere near what he ended up pulling off there. And I was like, oh man. Like, if I imagine myself coming out of the rink after practice or something, seeing that
All over your car? Yeah. I mean,
I'm done.
Fleury, one of the all-time great personalities in the game of hockey. So let's see here. We got Dennis Gurianov, who's kind of faded off into, you know, he's still playing, but not really doing much there. Dylan Cousins, somebody to look forward to for Buffalo next year. Pavel Buchnevich will be the darling of next year's trade deadline if the Blues don't keep him around.
How does it feel looking at him in a Rangers jersey?
You know, he was good while he was there. He was, you know, he wasn't a guy you wanted to get rid of. He was just like, okay, we can't sign everybody, so you're just kind of the guy that has to be that guy. So,
see, that's a time when you look at, you know, rule number 78.635 and see how you can circumvent the cap to keep him.
All right, let's. Yeah, I mean, I love that we're just coming up with random rule codes and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's great. I know there's a guy in one of my fantasy hockey leagues, the PA announcer for the Rangers. He's Rule 34.1, which I believe is some public address announcer rule. I think
78.6, by the way, is the league initiated review in the final minute of play of the third period or at any point in overtime. Or, you know.
There you go. All right, Ilya Sorokin, if he's back on track, that gets
That's you got two solid goalies in one pack.
Oh, and we still got more cards to go. This is a 28 card hanger pack, so we're gonna breeze through these here. We talked about him before. David Krejci, nice looking yellow Bruins jersey there. We got here. Let's see, our second duck of the deck, Cam Fowler. Got Aaron Ekblad, who's going to be key for that Panthers playoff run right there. Let's see here, Mr. Kevin Fiala. You know, if the Kings are going to do anything. Seattle. We got Philip Grubauer. Not going to be going to the playoffs this year. Let's see, Philip Zadina. He's getting his playing time with the Sharks, but did not live up to his draft pedigree. A guy who I believe just had a hat trick recently and is one of the more underrated players in the league. Group A hints at the Dallas Stars.
Yes, he is quite underrated.
He's like Joel Eriksson-Ek with offense. That's how I would describe him. We got Adam Henrique now with the Oilers at the trade deadline. You got Josh Norris there from the Senators. Let's see, Sam Reinhart, all of a sudden, you know, one of the top players in the league. You talk about, you know, Zach Hyman coming out of nowhere. Here's a guy that comes out of nowhere, Sam Reinhart.
Let's see. He was in Buffalo once upon a time.
Speaking of strong right wings, Jonathan Marchessault, last year's Conn Smythe winner.
I want to see a sleeve-worthy card come out of this pack.
Well, I don't want to. So I got two coming up at the end here, so I'm not no spoilers, but those are going to have to go in a penny sleeve. I'm going to have to go buy some actually. Sean Monahan, who is one of the Jets' big acquisitions at the deadline. Former Canadians captain Shea Weber.
I did not go to a hobby shop, but I went to my local Target, which usually has cards. They had no hockey cards at all.
I mean, listen, it's you know, some states and some places you could go into a Target and there'll be not a single card, and then you'll go into some and you'll have literally the whole aisle at your disposal to pick from. It's totally.
They had them for most of the season. They had, but considering that we were doing this, I was like, oh, let me go see and pick up a pack. And all the hockey ones are gone.
That's awful. Alex Tuck there, pictured with the Golden Knights, now with the Sabres. He was another guy that was potentially going to be moved at the trade deadline. Martin Necas there with the Hurricanes. Yanni Gord now with the Kraken. Picture with the Lightning there. Philip Deneau, the Kings. Excuse me. We do have a Andrei Vasilevsky blue parallel here. That's a penny sleeve worthy one. Maybe even into a top loader. And then for the second time in the deck, but this one is an Ice Battles insert, is Rupe Hintz. So got 2 Rupe Hintzes there. Now, this is kind of cool because we have a mascot card here, which I guess is kind of meant to look like a Magic card, I guess. But it's Thunderbug, the Lightning mascot. And that's what that card looks like. So that's actually pretty cool right there.
Yeah,
now,
that is.
We're going to close the deck with an MVP before and after insert with, one of the guys we talked about a lot this offseason as we thought would have a much bigger impact with his new team, but did not, Mr. Karlsson.
That's penny sleeve right there.
That's going in the top loader as soon as we are off the air, my friend.
Look at that stash, though.
Look at that. Beautiful.
Hair and everything, the stash, that is.
There may not be a guy in the league that has more fun playing hockey than Erik Karlsson.
True.
And look at that. I mean, those are good cards there. Now, if you liked what you saw there, we got Rip and Riff coming up tomorrow, National Hockey Card Day. We're going to have plenty more packs tomorrow. I'll even give you a little sneak peek. We're doing a little Pinnacle, 2010, 2011 there with the Magic Man, Pavel Datsyuk. And since it is Upper Deck, little 91 Upper Deck, my favorite series of all time. And then we'll go cup chasing for that cup hologram and the 90 Pro set. But that was fun doing we're not cheating on you, Jared, I promise. We're just doing a little promotion here for National Hockey Card Day on a hockey podcast. So if he's watching, I ain't cheating on you.
Now, when you go to the hobby shop, how much do those packs cost, especially now that you're going to 90, was it 90, 91?
So a lot of those I have to get off eBay. Like some of the older stuff you have to find off eBay, but the newer packs, it all depends on, is it a hanger pack that has a lot more cards? Is it the standard pack that maybe has 4 or 6? Like the price of the packs and also the line too. Like, the better quality cards, you may have it may be a 6-card pack that's like $15 a pack, but you're probably going to get something decent in there. So it's a sliding scale kind of thing. But that was fun. I enjoyed doing that. Now we're going to be back with you next Tuesday here on Total Hockey Now. By then, we'll hopefully know some of the playoff matchups, and we'll try and preview for you what we can. Whatever's still hanging in the balance, we're going to break it down and try and figure out who's going to go and take that there. So then let's go through our usual wind up here. Of course, we talked about Rip and Riff. Don't forget about that coming up tomorrow. And then Anthony's podcast, which we mentioned earlier, the Subway to Shea podcast. You want to talk Mets or NL East, there's the Rip and Riff info. And of course, the Slapshot podcast that Christopher Morais is a part of. So, fellas, been a great show. We're going to have a nice night of hockey. Look forward to here. A couple of big games on the board. And any closing thoughts before we get out of here? I think we did a good job today.
Yeah, just coming down to the wire, move the Coyotes, and especially to that has to be in bigger lettering to Quebec. Yeah,
I don't want Gary to see it. I want to hook Gary in and then tell him where he's going.
Well, if maybe by then we'll have some resolution with Arizona, but not. But until next time and until next Tuesday, for my line mates at Ant Rivera 86, at Fuzzy Chris 91, Christopher Morais, I'm at Pucking Thoughts Adam Bernard. We'll be back with you next Tuesday here on Total Hockey Now on the Total Hockey Now YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook network.